You're listening to the Cleveland Browniacs, a show where two moderately intelligent guys attempt to make sense of the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browniacs podcast is a part of the Fanatical Elves podcast network, a part of the Fans First Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Elliot Kennel and Joel Cade. See, when that broadcast talks about, or that intro talks about the moderately intelligent guys, he's talking about you, Elliot.
Yeah, because you're a genius. You are
I'm not a genius. I'm
moderately intelligent.
I'm less than moderately intelligent. You're the moderately intelligent one.
Well,
of course, most of our listeners probably think we're like, people on Twitter. So,
well, I am on Twitter, as a matter of fact, at TH Village Elliot. Yeah.
Hey, I'm at the left guard. Check me out on Twitter, X, whatever they call it now. X. I guess it marks the spot, whatever that means. All right, hey, another week of Browns football, an exciting victory there over the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are leading the AFC South. So that gives us victories over the Colts and the Jaguars and the Titans. So
and the Ravens.
Well, I mean, let's just talk about the AFC South for a second. We got the
okay. Well,
got the
leaders. We got all the leaders.
I can't think of the team that's called the Texans. We got the Texans in a couple weeks. So if we could sweep the AFC South, that would be tremendous. Just saying, because the Colts already beat the Ravens. So it'd be tremendous to try to do that. All right, Elliot, so what are your thoughts on last week's game?
Well, it was a big shock to me that Flacco threw more than 40 times and turned the ball over 3 times, and the Browns won the game. I didn't think that was going to happen, but the Browns did win. It was a really exciting game. I wish that they would hang on to the football a little bit better. I don't like the way that they did it, but what the heck, a win is a win. So that was really thrilling. Flacco has, in fact, cemented his job by really surpassing my expectations. And the longer it goes, the more of the offense he's going to learn and the more sense it makes to keep him in his position where he is. Even though I still like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I believe that he is well prepared to be a starting NFL quarterback should the need arise to put him back in the firing line.
Right. I've always thought that the way they use Flacco is going to be indicative of how they feel their season is going. If they felt like, okay, this is done, they'll go back to DTR. If they think there's still a chance to make the playoffs, you talking playoffs? They're gonna keep Flacco in there. So I don't know. Yeah. I liked Flacco week 1. I thought Flacco made some sense, especially with the way the players were talking about how when he drops back, it's poetry in motion. It's as if they hadn't seen somebody drop back and throw a pass. Of course, they've been dealing with PJ Walker and Dorian Thompson-Robinson for a while. So, I mean, yeah.
Well, Robinson can sling it. Now, PJ, is sort of an unorthodox quarterback, and he's really, too small and this, that, and the other. And even Deshaun Watson, as good as he is not an orthodox quarterback. He's not a drop back quarterback with precision accuracy and that sort of thing. He does make up a lot of stuff and drive you crazy. While he makes up a play that succeeds, he does it his own way and not the way that you'd like to see it, not the way that you drew it up on the chalkboard. And Flacco probably does do it the way that you drew it up.
Right. I mean, they've gone a lot to the outside zone offense and the short passing game with Flacco, and then taking a long shot, as it opens up. So they're really running the Stefanski offense with Flacco. I mean, that's what that offense is. Mm-hmm. So it's really, he's just kind of a guy, I don't know, kind of like Brock Purdy, right? He's just going to be a guy with some good decision-making abilities, some good arm strength, running an offense that doesn't put the onus on the quarterback to win, and letting him do his thing, letting him be the point guard shooting the ball around. Well, so it's worked so far.
I think it was like 42, 43 times he put the ball up, some ridiculous number, like maybe it was 45, but it was a lot. And I don't think that that's a good prescription for victories. On the other
Let me
hand,
tell
it
you.
was
Let me
a
tell you
lot
what's
of
the
plays
worst.
in that
Let me
football
tell you
game.
what's. Let me tell you what's worse than him throwing 42 times. You ready?
Yeah.
Running the ball 42 times at 1 yard a pop.
Well, that's not
That's worse.
possible. Yeah. True enough. Can't do that either. And they did run the ball a lot, and they threw a lot of the passes to running backs. And I guess maybe we should differentiate passes to wide receivers and tight ends compared to passes thrown to running backs, because those are really kind of like running plays. They're not really, relying on the long ball per se. And that, I think, makes a lot of sense. I've been advocating all along that the Browns need to use more passes to running backs out of the backfield, more screen passes to running backs. And that's, in fact, what they did with Jerome Ford, especially. We thought that he was talented enough to do that. And we saw proof of it with the veteran Flacco actually doing it rather than just thinking about it. He actually did it. And he also threw to Kareem Hunt.
He thinks about faking. And he
also, what I really liked about Flacco is that he used his secondary receivers and was not totally dependent on Amari Cooper. As good as Amari Cooper is, I felt that the other quarterbacks were way too dependent on just the number one receiver. This was a problem.
I think this
for a
game,
number of years.
I'm glad you brought this up, because I think this game shows a point that I was making on my What the Elf Was That podcast a few weeks back when we played Pittsburgh. I had a college roommate of mine, Brad Haskell, on, and we were talking about, he was the college quarterback and I was the offensive lineman, and we were rooming together. So he has a lot of quarterback knowledge, and he was asking me what the Browns do, or excuse me, what other teams do to the Browns, because we've spent many a late night discussing offensive strategy in college. And I was telling him that most teams come in and they double Njoku to take him out of the game, because they know if you don't double Njoku, you're going to get your butt whipped. And then it's always up to the onus on Amari Cooper to win one-on-one battles to make that wide receiver core work. So what we saw, I think, in that game was the Jaguars deciding we're taking Amari Cooper out of the game. Okay, so they had double teams on Cooper, right? We saw Flacco trying to throw it to Cooper. He's on double teams. Then they start throwing it to Njoku, right? He's open because he can beat players one-on-one. And then once he gets the ball, he's big, he's fast, and he's the guy that's going to beat you. And then after he scores 2 touchdowns on him, they decided to double him again. And so Flacco's now throwing the ball back to Amari Cooper, and the other wide receivers are getting one-to-one matchups because Njoku is being taken away. That's why we don't see a lot of David Njoku out there. Teams take him away on purpose to make the receivers beat them. That's how they operate. And it's been going on for a long time. I just wanted to point that out. That was an interesting little debate that I got to watch play out in that Jacksonville game.
Yeah, and it's funny. I would also interject. First of all, I think you're right on target with that. Your analysis is spot on and very well taken. Love it. I will also point out that a lot of the analysis that you will read about in other less learned sectors of the Cleveland media, and especially the semi-pro part of the media, people are really down on David Njoku. They have been for years. They still harp on the criticism that he got when he was in his second year by John Dorsey, that, he doesn't block well, which was true when he was a rookie and in his second year. But he became a very good blocker because he applied himself, worked hard, and became really good. He has tremendous receiving statistics. I don't know where people get the idea that he drops balls all the time. He does not. I mean, he, compared to other tight ends in the NFL, he's a very good receiving tight end. I think he has never gotten a really fair shake from the media as a whole. He hasn't gotten the fan support that I think he deserves. I think he's an absolutely wonderful kid. And if you read about his family, he's got a brother that's a brain surgeon, and he's got other brothers and sisters that are very high achievers. It's a tremendous family. He's a great story. It's an all-American success story as far as I'm concerned. And I really, really love David Njoku.
Yeah, Njoku really does make that offense run on the receiving end. If he's left one-on-one, you can throw to him all day long. Once they start doubling him, then it's on these receivers who aren't, up to Njoku's status. Then they got to start carrying the day. So, that's kind of how that rolls around. Hey, let's talk about the playoffs for a second.
Playoffs?
Let's actually talk about playoffs for a second. So if you get on ESPN, you can get on this playoff predictor thing on ESPN.
Mm.
And no matter what way you run this, if the Browns can win 10 games, 2 of the next 4 games, they're going to be in the playoffs. That's not a guarantee. It gets about a 98% chance to make the playoffs if they win 2
there's
of the
a
next 4 games.
chance that they could not make it.
So you got to win 2 of 4. I call it 10 and you're in, right? If you win 10, you're in. That's pretty much what it is.
There's a 2% chance that we might not make it. We're doomed.
Okay. I know it's happened, but 10 and you're in. That's where we're at. Especially if one of those 2 victories you get can be over the Houston Texans. That would help tremendously as well. But statistically, it doesn't make a difference. You just got to win 2 of the next 4. So you could beat, if you beat the Bears this weekend, you're at like 92% at that point. So take care of this week, and you got a 92% chance of making the playoffs. Take care of one more game after that,
chance
you got a 97% chance of making the playoffs.
3%
There's even a scenario out there where the Browns can end up being the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Now, I think that's far-fetched, okay, because you're asking the Browns to win all the rest of their games. Then you're talking about, on top of that, you got to have the Ravens lose twice. You got to have the Dolphins lose twice. And one of the teams that the Ravens play is the Dolphins. So that game's going to be a wash. So I don't know. I'm just happy getting into the playoffs if they can do it. And they got to win 2 of the next 4.
I just want to say Baltimore has been the luckiest team in the NFL this year.
Oh my God, really? Like,
yeah,
they play like these garbage teams. They got the Houston Texans week 1. They got these garbage teams. There was a stretch.
But
there was a stretch.
Let's qualify that. They got to play an outstanding rookie quarterback, but they caught him in his first NFL start when he wasn't nearly as good as he is now.
They've caught 4 NFL quarterbacks, rookies, on their first NFL start.
And not only
that's ridiculous.
They had Joe Burrow twice. They had Joe Burrow twice when he was injured.
Right.
He was hopping around on one leg in one game, and in the other game, his wrist, he snapped a tendon or something. And they didn't get the real Joe Burrow in either of the Cincinnati games, and yet everybody's so impressed with, oh my gosh, look at how dominant they are.
Just wait till they get to playoffs. They never win anything in the playoffs. That's like the Miami Dolphins, right? The Dolphins are like 1-3 against teams with winning records. They've played a bunch of teams with winning records.
Well, what have you done for me lately? They started out very, very impressively, and they have not played as well lately. But yeah, the NFL is very unpredictable. You will lose your shirt betting against the NFL, betting in NFL football games. You eventually will lose because you can't predict it any better than the 10% that the bookie gets, that your betting service, I should say, gets. It's a very, very unpredictable sport.
NFL is crazy. Hey, speaking of crazy, why don't we take our break real quick?
Let's take a crazy break.
After we come back from commercial break, we'll talk about something. I'm not sure what yet, but we'll figure something out. So hang on. All right, and we're back. Elliot, what do you want to talk about?
Well, maybe we ought to talk about the Bears. The Bears is only, when the spot opened, I think it was 3 points, and now, it's 3.5. But I said at the time that I thought 3 points was a very unusual spread, considering that the Bears are a last place team in the division that wasn't that powerful, in a conference that is not that powerful. And yet the Cleveland Browns are the number 1 seed for the wild card. Now you can say that, but the Browns have had lots of injuries, and that's certainly true. Nevertheless, the Browns are 8-5 playing at home. The Bears are 5-8 playing on the road. How does that translate to a 3-point spread? Can you answer that for me? Mr. Cade, you're on.
So first of all, I don't know anything about betting. I'm just going to admit this right now. I do not
Well,
know
who's the
how
better
or
team?
why.
Just tell me that.
Well, I'm just going to say this about the Bears. One, I think the Browns right now are still a better team than the Chicago Bears. And believe it or not, I think it's because the Browns, with Joe Flacco, have a better quarterback than the Chicago Bears. And I don't think the Bears are coached well enough and cohesive well enough to win in December. Except, I say all that, they beat the Lions 28-13 last week. So, the Bears have, quote unquote, been resurgent. They beat the Vikings the week before that. Of course, before that, they got hammered by the Lions, and then they barely beat the Panthers. And then the Saints beat them by 7. Then the Chargers, that's only back in October, hammered them. So I guess you could make the narrative out to be that the Bears are playing better. They might actually look like an organized football team. I don't know. They certainly play like the bad news Bears.
Well, yeah, I guess I would say this, that I really respect Justin Fields. I think that the press in Chicago hates him because they hate all quarterbacks. They think that all the problems in Chicago are the fault of the quarterback. And if only they had a true franchise quarterback, they would be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like Jim McMahon.
Like Jim McMahon or Mitch Trubisky or, any
I don't think
other
it's
from the
Trubisky.
pantheon of greats. I mean, I wrote about this at some length that they keep on trading away first-round draft picks to get some superstar that they think will completely transform their team. They traded away a king's ransom, in order to get Khalil Mack, and they also traded away a lot of draft picks to get Mitch Trubisky. Because why? Because the Cleveland Browns were the dumb team. They took a defensive lineman instead of a quarterback. Can you believe that? They failed to take Mitch Trubisky when they had the opportunity. Instead, they took a defensive lineman. That was Myles Garrett.
Right.
Oh, okay. And okay. So the Bears took Mitch Trubisky. Now, I think Mitch Trubisky is actually not a bad quarterback. When he had a supporting cast before their team decayed away into garbage, Mitch Trubisky actually did make the Pro Bowl. So he can't be that terrible. But he has never had a good team, and playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers as he is now, that doesn't count either. So, I'll take Mitch Trubisky if they release him in the offseason. I'll sign him as a backup quarterback. But giving away all those draft picks for Mitch Trubisky was stupid.
They got a lot of them back when they traded away the number 1 overall pick to Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Well, what they did lately, now, within the past year, I don't know if they changed their GM recently. When was the last time they got a new general manager?
I don't know. I will say this for the Chicago Bears.
I do like the fact that they wound up with the number 1 overall pick this year by not drafting Bryce Young last season. That was a good idea. And this was supposed to be the draft that I was surprised Carolina went up to get Bryce Young because this was supposed to be the draft. Yeah, but they're a dumb team.
Quarterbacks are coming out.
They do what dumb teams do.
They got
Bryce Young. He won a national championship. He's almost. They think that he's well, I guess he did win a national championship, didn't he?
They got a new owner, and you know how owners are. We saw this with Jimmy Haslam.
Yeah.
Let's draft the guy. Let's draft the guy that appeals to the Southern fan base, since it's Carolina and most of and Charlotte's close to the South, right? So let's draft the guy with the most draft appeal, like Johnny Manziel. Homeless guy even knows who Johnny Manziel is.
Yeah, maybe the homeless guy said, "Draft Bryce Young." Oh, okay. But we had that discussion, you and I, and we thought that Bryce Young is probably going to be an acceptable NFL starter,
right?
But not worth the first overall pick. That was crazy.
And you're gonna have to have a special offense for him for his height and a lot of other things that go on. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, Carolina. That's.
But Chicago did well. They did the right thing. They got more draft picks because that's what they need, and they should build around Justin Fields rather than trade him away and start over with some new quarterback with no support like they usually do.
Yeah, and I
That has
wouldn't be
not worked
drafting
for
Caleb
them in the
Williams this
past.
year either. I wouldn't
Pardon?
draft Caleb Williams this year. I
I
watched
wouldn't either.
USC. I watched USC go up to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame just blitzed the crap out of him, and he just fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely fell apart.
Let me qualify that. I would draft him, but I would not draft him at the first overall position.
Yes, I'll agree with that. I'd probably
I'm the guy that does not reflexively draft quarterbacks first overall. I do not think that the quarterback is that predictable and is not necessarily that much of an impact player compared to what a defensive end that is really, really good. And if you give me 3 or 4 first round picks for the first overall pick, I'm going to take that trade most of the time.
Right.
How about that?
Well, I think the Bears did help themselves that way. The question for in Chicago, I guess I was doing a little bit of reading on it, is is the head coach going to keep his job after this year because the Bears have not played well, and can this late resurgence like help the Bears, help him keep his job? Now, I don't think that's the case. I think you've got Detroit just kind of looking past Chicago last week. I think you got the Vikings looking past Chicago. Then the Bears playing a little bit better, making the game a little bit more interesting. The key will be for the Browns not to look past Chicago. Everything is a dogfight for the Browns. It has to be. The minute you think you can show up and roll the ball out there, you're screwed. Just look at Pittsburgh right now. They literally think they can just roll the ball out there and win. They just lost to 2 teams, 8 games under 500 in back-to-back weeks. I mean, I think the Panthers could beat the Steelers right now.
Yeah, well, no, that's absolutely true. We talk about playoffs, and we made this point previously because we're sports analysts. But if the players are thinking that way, then they are in fact doomed. They have to be thinking about one thing only is what am I going to do to my guy on the Chicago Bears on the other side of the line of scrimmage?
Winning this week.
The only thing that they can be worried about is wanting to play the Chicago Bears and prove that they're better than the Chicago Bears. Mm-hmm. I personally don't believe that the Chicago Bears are at the same level as the Cleveland Browns, but that has to be proven on the field. We'll just see how it happens. The odds makers are saying that the Cleveland Browns don't know how to cope with success, and that's why they're rating the 2 teams as about equal. I'm not sure that the Chicago Bears know how to contend with success.
What do the Bears have to play for right now except for trying to be a spoiler?
Well, that's basically it. They think that they're delirious with the fact that they've won 3 games out of 4, and that they feel that they're unbeatable now. That's kind of.
I don't think they have won 3 games out of 4. They've won.
I think that they have, and that's they've won buzz.
2 out of 3.
That's the buzz that's going around town.
Got it right in front of me. They beat the Lions. They beat the Bears. So they've won 2 in a row. Oh, they have because they beat the Panthers by 3. So they've won 3 out of 4.
Yeah, and they're delirious. I mean, that's the buzz coming out of Chicago. God, we've won 3 out of 4.
Oh, no. Yeah, that is right. I just think teams are overlooking them. That's how the Panthers beat the Texans. The Texans overlooked them. Like, okay, we're dealing with the Carolina Panthers, whatever. That's how a team like the Panthers win a game. So I think they're going to go 1-16. I'm going to be honest with you. And I don't even know how they won that one game. Anyway, the Bears, right? So the Bears are running apparently off 3 out of the last 4 and are running a little bit hot right now. But how many teams have we seen? Brock Purdy comes into Cleveland, having never lost a game in the regular season. The Browns beat him. And I think at this point, the Browns are still the only team that beat Brock Purdy as a starter in the NFL.
No. They lost 3 in a row.
Oh, did they? Did he start as quarterback?
Yes, I think he did.
Okay. So good for him. I saw some stupid stats somewhere, and I knew it was absolutely wrong that Brock Purdy was 7-0 against teams who have against teams with winning records or something. That's
probably true because he had that.
No, because the Browns had a winning record when they beat him.
Well, he was possibly at one time, so I don't think he's still.
Oh, that was after the Browns game. So I don't know. Anyway, I just think, if you get to this point of the season and you're just seeing the Bears in your schedule and you're just like, okay, we can rest up and wait for the next week. It's just clearly a trap game, particularly for the Lions, maybe even the Vikings. Like, hey, this team is garbage. It doesn't really matter to
the
us.
Vikings are not as good as they think, and they're
Oh, yeah.
playing their third string quarterback as well, and they're making a switch back to Nick Mullins, I understand.
Well,
Another
Nick Mullins,
the Cleveland quarterback, by the way,
because he understands that offense, that outside zone offense. But
he's got more reps than Rocket Man Joshua Dobbs, so it would make sense that he would be better prepared. Although Joshua Dobbs, I really like a lot, have a lot of respect for him. But Nick Mullins has had an entire season to prepare to play to be the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. In fact, I think he's had 2 years that's right. He's had 2 years with the Vikings. So he's very well prepared to be their quarterback.
Wasn't he on IR, Nick Mullins?
Yeah, I don't know if he was on IR or not, but he was injured and was not able to play the past several weeks, and that's why they had to go to Dobbs.
Yeah. Well, look, I think you can't overlook any NFL team, right? You can't. That's the trap, is to overlook some team and think we got a big game the week after and we got to do something with this. Like, the Browns just need to say we need to focus on the Chicago Bears and beating the Chicago Bears, because if you beat the Chicago Bears, you've got another W, right? And then all of us as analysts can talk about how, we beat the Chicago Bears. Now there's a 92% chance of making the playoffs. And that's how it rolls.
Chance that we're not going to make the playoffs.
You're such a pessimistic Browns fan.
Oh my God.
Be positive. Be positive. Oh my God. Stop talking about Deshaun Watson in the booth. Stop it.
Wait a minute. I didn't talk about Deshaun Watson.
No, I'm just like.
Was he actually in the booth or was he in the stands? I heard that
he was in the Haslam's box.
If he was in the Haslam's box, then good grief.
I think he was literally in the Haslam box. All right, hey guys, we're going to wrap this up. I didn't want to make.
They told me he was in the stands.
Oh no!
And then I said, "Oh my God, you're not going to wear the Cleveland Browns logo in the stands? Are you kidding?"
He's in the owner's box.
Well, in the owner's box, and of course, you do whatever That is.
Anyway, I want to point out that on my podcast, What the Elf Was That? I did a deep dive into punters and why I still think Corey Bojorquez is not a good punter. So that's there. I compared him to Jamie Gillen and why Jamie Gillen is a better punter than Corey Bojorquez. So that'll get all the angry Browns fans.
No, Corey does a lot of things that, he has the knuckleball punt and he can really put a lot of weird English on the punt.
Well, it doesn't result in actual yardage gain. So,
it does. It does. Yeah,
I'll go look it up, Elliot.
They start dropping punts and fumbling them and stuff.
Go look it up. Go look it up. Go look it up. Go look it up. The net yardage gain compared to Jamie Gillen compared to Corey Bojorquez. Anyway, we both got to run.
Okay, so let's run.
Check us out next week. We'll be back after hopefully a big Browns victory over the Chicago Bears. Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Browniacs. Please like and follow us on Spotify and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Go Browns!